Little Red Riding Hood. Once upon a time, there was a little girl who lived in a village near the forest. Every time she went out, she wore a red riding cloak, so everyone called her Little Red Riding Hood. One morning, Little Red Riding Hood asked her mother if she could go visit her grandmother, as it had been a while since they had seen each other.
That's a good idea,
her mother said. So, they packed a nice basket for her to take to her grandmother. The little girl put on her red cloak and kissed her mother goodbye.
Remember, go straight to Grandma's house,
her mother cautioned.
The woods are dangerous. Don't talk to strangers.
Little Red Riding Hood said.
I'll be careful.
But when Little Red Riding Hood noticed some lovely flowers in the woods, she forgot her promise to her mother. She picked a few, watched the butterfly flit about for a while, listened to the frogs croaking and then picked a few more. Little Red Riding Hood was enjoying the warm day so much, that she didn't notice a dark shadow approaching out of the forest behind her. Suddenly, a wolf appeared beside her.
What are you doing out here, little girl?
The wolf asked in a friendly voice.
I'm on my way to see my grandma who lives through the forest,
Little Red Riding Hood replied. Then she realized how late she was and quickly excused herself, rushing down the path to her grandma's house. The wolf, in the meantime, took a shortcut. The wolf arrived at Grandma's house and knocked lightly at the door.
Oh, thank goodness, dear. Come in, come in. I was worried sick that something had happened to you in the forest,
said Grandma, thinking that the knock was her granddaughter. The wolf let himself in and gobbled the granny. The wolf poked through Granny's wardrobe to find a nightgown that he liked. He added a frilly sleeping cap, and for good measure and dabbed some of Granny's perfume. When Little Red Riding Hood entered the little cottage, she could scarcely recognize her grandmother.
Grandmother, your voice sounds so odd. Is something the matter?
She asked. The girl could scarcely recognize her grandmother.
Grandmother, your voice sounds so odd. Is something the matter?
She asked.
Oh, I just have a touch of a cold,
squeaked the wolf with a cough.
But grandmother, what big ears you have,
said Little Red Riding Hood.
The better to hear from you, my dear,
replied the wolf.
But grandmother, what big eyes you have,
she said.
The better to see you with, my dear,
replied the wolf.
But grandmother, what big teeth you have,
she said.
The better to eat you with, my dear,
roared the wolf, and he leapt out of bed and began to chase the little girl. And she realized it was a wolf, and not her grandmother. A woodsman who was chopping logs nearby heard her cry and grabbed the wolf and made him spit out the poor grandmother, who was a bit frazzled by the whole experience, but still in one piece.
Oh grandma, I was so scared,
sobbed Little Red Riding Hood.
I'll never speak to strangers or dawdle in the forest again.
There, child. You've learned an important lesson. Thank goodness you shouted loud enough for this kind woodsman to hear you.
The woodsman knocked out the wolf and carried him deep into the forest where he wouldn't bother people any longer. Little Red Riding Hood and her grandmother had a nice lunch and a long chat. Moral of the story: never trust strangers and be careful of your surroundings.